hello everybody and welcome to our latest Zoom presentation. I can see a few familiar names there already joining us, so thanks for joining us again. Kit, hello, and Leslie. I saw Bjorn sign up as well. Saeed, hello, how are you? So lovely to see some familiar faces there that have been on, or familiar names that have been on talks before, and lots of new names too. So that's great. So welcome to any of those that have not been, not joined any of our talks before. Hopefully, I think people are still trickling in, but I think most people have joined us. So let's make a start. My name's Phil from Dive Worldwide, and I'm excited to be able to take you from your living rooms or your kitchens this evening to the beautiful Central American country of Belize, where we're going to showcase all that is wonderful about this country, both on land and under the water. We have three experts today. We're very lucky joining me on the call. So I'll just introduce them to you. First of all, we've got Nick Davies. Nick is going to present to us. He knows Belize fantastically well, has been organising itineraries for many a Dive Worldwide client and many other clients from around the world for many years, and knows Belize really as well as anyone. So hello, Nick. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
Hi there. Are you excited to be able to showcase Belize to everybody?
Absolutely ecstatic.
Super, brilliant. And then we also have Deborah. Deborah, thank you very, very much for joining us. Deborah's from the Belize Tourist Board and is going to be sharing a little bit of her thoughts on Belize as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Deborah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure also to be here.
Super. And then we have Rolando. Rolando is a dive guide at Ramon's Dive Centre in Ambergris Key. So he's our dive expert. Good evening, Rolando. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
Perfect. Have you been diving this week, Rolando?
Well, I dove this morning.
Oh, fantastic. How was that?
Good, good. It was nice. It was all beautiful weather today. Temperature was nice, 80s. It was a good day.
Perfect, perfect. It's very cold here, so we can just imagine the tropical vibes. Rolando is very close to a beach. Yesterday when we had our dress rehearsal, we had Rolando on the beach in a much more tropical setting that he's in now, but the internet didn't really work, unfortunately. So he is very close to a beach and in the tropics, even though it's a less glamorous backdrop than we had yesterday. Okay, so that's the introductions out the way. I'm hoping everybody can hear me, and that's all fine. If you can't, please write on the chat. What we're going to do, I will kick off in a moment with a video, and then we are going to hand over to Deborah and then Nick to give some presentations, to give you a real flavour of Belize. After that, we will have a bit of a question and answer session. So you will see, hopefully within your Zoom, there's a Q&A button down the bottom and there's a chat button as well. If you think of any questions while we go through that you'd like to ask to our experts, then please pop them on the chat. And after we've done the presentation, we'll answer as many questions as we can. Okay? So let's kick off. I will share my screen. I will try and remember to click the share sound button because that's always the important one. And we're going to kick off with a quick video just to give you a little flavour of Belize. So this is a promotional video from the Tourist Board just to get everybody in the mood.
It's time to dust off your passport. It's time to leave slippers and sweatpants behind because there are adventures waiting ahead. Time to make this year everything last year wasn't. It's time to grab life in Belize.
There we go. Okay, so hopefully everybody could see and hear that video. Our panelists, as we can hear you, did that play all right for you?
Perfect.
Very good. Okay, that's good. Excellent. So hopefully that gets everybody in the little mindset of Belize. Just a short video, but I think good to kick us off. Deborah, if I could hand over to you now, just to give us a little bit of an introduction to Belize.
Fantastic, Phil. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's here. I'm Debbie Arana, as Phil mentioned. I'm the travel trade specialist for the Belize Tourism Board, and it's a pleasure to share with you some of the wonderful highlights of Belize and the experiences you can enjoy when you visit our lovely country. So I'll give you a few facts to start with. Belize is a tiny beach destination. We're tucked between the Mexican state of Quintana Roo on the north, then there's Guatemala on the west and south, and then there's the Caribbean Sea on the east side. Now, this unique location puts us in both Central America and the Caribbean. Belize was once a British colony. We got our independence from Great Britain on September 21st, 1981. So while English is the official language, more than half of our population speaks colloquial Spanish. The country is home to the largest barrier reef in the Western Hemisphere. We have the magnificent Great Blue Hole. We have 3 of the 4 coral atolls found in the Caribbean, and divers from all over the world come to Belize for a diving experience unlike anywhere else. Now, there are hundreds of snorkeling sites from varying depths along the Belize Barrier Reef. Every snorkel spot is a little different from the other, and Nick and Rolando will give you a little more about the diving and the snorkeling experiences. So from schools of fish to turtles to occasional barracuda, there are a lot going on the water. Other activities could range from sports fishing to paddle boarding. Now, we also have ancient Maya cities, or Maya temples, as some people know them as. These are spread all over the country. So wherever you are, there is always a Maya site that's nearby, even on the islands. Like, for example, Ambergris Key has a Maya site that you can also visit. Now, we also have thousands of caves in Belize, and these range from easy walks to challenging hikes that can often sometimes turn into squeezes and crawls and climbs and rappels and swim. In most of the caves, you'll find extensive stalactites and stalagmite formations and even pottery shards. Others have like ancient intact pottery and even like the human remains, like in the famous Aktun Tunichil Muknal. That's one of the popular caves. When it comes to nature trails, as intimidating as some may look on a map, you don't have to worry, because most of our nature trails are designed in loops so you can easily return to your starting point. So you can do them on your own. Some trails are even self-guided, as I mentioned, while some require the expertise of a licensed tour guide who can point out birds, wildlife, and other local plants. And many trails take you to exquisite waterfalls where you can choose to take a dip and cool off, or you can just appreciate the gushing waterfalls in a whole new way by securing a harness and rappelling down the face of the waterfall. So that's just like another way of enjoying it. You can also enjoy canoeing along, say, like the Makal River and the Mopan River. You can kayak along the beaches and around the islands. You could set out on a sailing adventure. You could saddle up and enjoy some of the most beautiful places by horse. Just think about visiting a Maya temple like Shunantunich by horse. And then on your way back, you can stop and have a nice little champagne picnic. Horseback riding can be arranged through the jungles of the Cayo district or to the Maya sites. Like I mentioned, El Pilar is another popular one. Shunantunich, Cajalpech, these are just some of the more well-known ones. We also have over 500 species of what we call feathered friends that call Belize home from time to time. So you can easily watch birds while doing something else. In Belize, we have a huge network of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries brimming with exotic animals. Like we have the howler monkeys, the bright green iguanas, and even the elusive jaguar. And those who enjoy adrenaline rush will love to zip line at lightning speed over a canopy of lush rainforest. And even after a long day of fun, you can relax and enjoy therapeutic activities. And that could be like sunset sailing tours around the coast or the islands, and a bioluminescent lagoon tour that you have to experience it to enjoy the magical glow. And these are just to name a few. And then at the end, or even during the all this adventure, you can experience our culture through our cuisine. The diversity of our culture, it magically infuses in our cuisine, which makes Belize a foodie paradise. Farm to table and sustainability are at the forefront of many of our resorts' core practices. And so guests, you can enjoy wholesome and delightful food prepared with Belizean love. And some resorts even offer tours on site where guests could see how the food they consume are prepared. And just a few things to keep in mind as I close off and hand over to Nick. We've never been a mass tourism destination with overcrowded beaches or local attractions. And with many of our lodging facilities being small boutique accommodations, there is a low guest to staff ratio. So as a result, staff is able to offer you more personalized care and attention. And just keep in mind, Belize is a highly experiential destination. We have so much to offer in our heritage, our culture, or our culinary experiences, adventure, and even health and wellness. We have no language barrier because we're English speaking, and it's very easy and safe to move around the country. We have a stable currency, and you can use US dollars in Belize. It's widely accepted. And that concludes my overview for today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Debbie. That was a really, really good flavour to get us started in Belize. Just before I hand over to Nick, what's your favourite secret spot in Belize, Deborah?
Well, I'm a nature lover. I love being in nature. So I would totally enjoy like a horseback ride to a waterfall. It's just, you know, at sunrise. And I also love sunset sailing cruises. I just have a thing with being in nature and the sunset, sunrise. So those are my favorite spots.
Wonderful, wonderful. I did rather like the sound of the horse riding with champagne. That sounds right up my street. Super, thank you very much. So we're going to hand over to Nick now to give a presentation on Belize.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Debbie. Now, Debbie and I have traveled the world together for many years promoting and presenting Belize. She also happens to be the best jazz singer in Belize. So if we got a bit of time later on, she might get her pipes out and give us a few notes. Debbie is also such an incredible icon of the tourism aspect of Belize that she's actually done my entire presentation for me. So mine will probably be quite a lot shorter now. Debbie, no, thank you so much, and lovely to have Rolando there off the beach for a minute to join us. Thanks. So yeah, a lot of obviously what I will say is pretty much echoing the sentiments of Debbie and the perspective of Belize. Slightly different, obviously, because I come at it from probably a slightly different perspective. As you can hear in my accent, I'm not Belizean. I am by marriage, and I'm a Belizean citizen without the amazing accent. Yeah, so obviously my story, in about 2008, I was contacted by a very dear old friend who was in PR, and said, "Oh, we're opening this the first sort of, you know, super luxury boutique hotel in the jungle in Belize. Can you come and open it up?" And I said, "Absolutely. Where's Belize?" Long story short, I was consigned to be there for 4 months. 4 months turned into 8 months, turned into 12 months as my love for Belize grew. and coming up on 18 months, I kissed a girl, pictured in the photo, of course, my beautiful wife, Shannon. And the rest is history, as they say. So my connectivity with Belize, actually now, we're currently living in Yorkshire. Hello, all those up in Yorkshire. And the lovely young lady on the left is our daughter, after who our company was formed and named. And as you can see in the picture there, she's about 8, she's now 11, doing everything that Debbie has already alluded to, the cave tubing, the zip lining. And she is very typical of most children in Belize. I always say that Belize is a nation of tour guides, because by the time the kids are 10, 12, 15, they know everything there is to know about their country. They know who the Prime Minister is. They know the national anthem inside out and back to front. They know the national birds and the you know what history of Belize. I don't think you get the same perspective if you talk to a child on the street in England, for example, of all the sort of things about the UK and its history and everything, as much as you get from the Belizean kids. And they're just such a joy to hear their enthusiasm, and that obviously, you know, carries on into adulthood. So just to give a little understanding, I mean, Debbie already alluded to the fact, I mean, most Brits know of obviously Jamaica, and you'll notice obviously, you know, we're a tiny dot of a country, and I'll put that in perspective in a short while. You'll notice also Honduras, Nicaragua, there's quite a sort of, for want of a better word, a bit of a lump. And what happens is any adverse weather tends to barrel in towards Honduras and Nicaragua. And that big lump there tends to push the weather, fortunately for Belize as a nation, up into Mexico, or up into, you know, between Cuba and Mexico up towards the States. So over the years, we have been especially blessed with good year-round weather. And I think Rodolfo will probably back it up with some better perspective than me. But in my time in Belize over the years, there was very few days where you actually couldn't get out and dive, or you couldn't get out and do, you know, some adventure. Yes, in 12 or so years, you know, like every country on the planet, UK included, you have, you know, some typical adventurous weather which messes people up for a couple of days. So on a typical Belize adventure is 10 to 14 days. You'll be exceptionally unlucky if in that time you didn't make the majority of your, or all, we expect you to make all, but at least majority of your dive and adventure excursions and snorkeling that you would have planned on such a trip. This zooms in on the country. It's a very pretty map, but it does, explain better what Debbie was referring to. There are 450 keys, which are our little islands. Now, keys is not spelt K-E-Y-S, it's spelt C-A-Y-E-S, but pronounced keys. Americans have an interesting way of saying all the words that we have. And you'll see very clearly the main part of the land. It's and an interesting statistic is that there's 38% of the land terrestrial is protected, and 19%, 90.8% of the marine world is protected. And what that does is it preserves it for our grandchildren and for people to come and visit. I think one of the nice things about visiting Belize is, you know, when you come from bigger destinations, Mexico being one, and other places close by, if you go to my site, there can be 1,000 people on the site that day. If you do the same thing in Belize, you go to a dive site, there's one boat, you know, unless it's somewhere like Hol Chan and Shark Alley. And if you go on an excursion, normally group sizes are 8, 10, 12, boats are small and not overcrowded. So it's really, it's about a quality experience rather than, you know, Belize is not a mass tourism destination. Debbie knows better than me the current sort of visitor figures excluding, we don't exclude the you know, we don't include the cruise ships in those. I'm talking about, you know, people that come for land vacations. And the numbers are small compared to other destinations, which assures you of a really quality experience. up in the north by the, and I'm not sure how big you're seeing this map, it's very small for me, but up by the yacht, that is where Rolando is right now. It's Ambergris Key, that is the largest island and the most populous island. The others, apart from Key Corca, which is to the south of Ambergris Key and San Pedro, are sparsely populated with very, very small populations, and many obviously private islands. Just to give some other context, the size of the country is just a tad under 9,000 square miles. Now, to put it in perspective for the people on this webinar today, that's the size of Wales, more or less. So you see, now you understand the size of the country. We are 6 hours behind, so we're going to bed. Debbie and Rolando just got up. Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. And our subtropical climate is a balmy average of either 27, 28 Celsius or 80 Fahrenheit, depending on which temperature you think in. And the population is about just under 400,000. Now, interestingly enough, that's the population of Cardiff. So at this point, I have to welcome all of those properly living in Wales. Croeso I fondiddigesaya bondidigion noswythra. So there we go. That's the Welsh greeting. I've said it horribly, I'm absolutely sure.
I was impressed.
Oh, there we go. The tourist board, in all fairness, has done an incredible job of managing the current crisis facing the planet. And rather interestingly, Belize, in a slightly different perspective, and again, everyone has an opinion, rightly or wrongly so, but the focus was on vaccinating those involved in frontline tourism so that the country could get back safely and securely to welcoming its visitors, tourism being our main sort of core product, if you like. And they introduced a gold status so that all hoteliers, all tour operators had to be licensed by the tourist authorities to ensure they fell in with what was necessary to keep people in Belize coming and going away safely. So hats off, chapeau raised to the government and the tourist board for managing what has been a difficult situation. In the picture here, you'll see just a short analysis. We really have about 9 main cultural groups. You see 4 here on the left. The lady in the yellow is, well, to make things easy, people generally say Garifuna, but actually the people are called Garinagu and the language is Garifuna. But to keep it interesting or easy for everyone to follow along, you'll find in Belize people don't use the word Garinagu very often. They just say Garinaga people, Garinaga language. That's wrong, but it's easy to remember. The next lady along is Mestizo, and that is the largest sort of population. 53% of the population is Mestizo. To the right of that is Creole and lady with, again, they all got the traditional costumes, and the Maya lady on your right. And there's 3 main Maya cultural groups, Quechua, Yucatec, and Mopan. And in the picture below, our daughter is the one in the middle, and so she's part Creole, and on her left is a Garifuna young girl and a Maya girl to her right, and they're all playing. So it's not just for tourists that we show these pictures. This is real life in Belize, and if you go into any playground or anywhere, you will see this very rich, eclectic mix of people. And the one thing they have in common, they're all Belizean. They all speak the same language. They all speak Creole. My kids say, Dad, don't speak Creole. I'm not allowed to speak it because my Creole is really bad. So just to Debbie's mentioned a lot of the facts, so I won't repeat the great ones that she's already mentioned. Interestingly enough, in 1986, Madonna, who some of you will know, did a song, Last Night I Dreamt of San Pedro. Last night, Debbie can sing it. And it's also referring in the song to Isla Bonita. Now, San Pedro is Isla Bonita. As you step off the little planes that carry you there, you'll see the word "Welcome to Isla Bonita." Now, there is a doubt as to whether she ever visited the island. She said she hadn't, but you know, all the things she talks about in the song are very atypical of a trip to San Pedro. So we claim that, that we think that it is the San Pedro and Isla Bonita that we know and love. And it's a very eclectic, great, you know, place to, it's the most visited tourism destination in our country, followed by San Ignacio in the west. The waters are home to sort of over 450 species of fish and approximately 66 or so different coral species. We have 7 UNESCO World Heritage Status sites. These include the Great Blue Hole, Bacalao Chico, which is in the north of where Rolando is sitting right now, Half Moon Key, which is out on the west, Southwater Key down in the Placencia and southern areas, Glover's Reef and Laughing Bird, which are all in the south. I've been lucky enough to go to a few of these sites, and they are absolutely astonishing. You know, the trips there are fabulous. If you have, you know, a spotty day, it can be a little bumpy heading out to the Great Blue Hole. And the interesting thing is the tourist board recently brought out some new guidelines to ensure that people visiting the Great Blue Hole had sufficient dive experience so that those divers going out there with their, you know, and for many people going to the Blue Hole is definitely on their bucket list. And so what the worst thing would be is you've waited so long to go to the Blue Hole and have this incredible experience, and you're surrounded by novice divers who are flailing around and you know, spoiling your day. So the government and the tourist board brought in, the dive industry brought in some little qualifying to ensure that those serious divers going out there had a quality experience. If those of you have questions about that, I know Rolando can answer that. But it just means it's a quality experience for everybody. Traveling to Belize, you can really, the one or the main route is through the USA. And all I would say is in the depths of winter, you know, North American winter, you might want to consider chatting, you know, to whoever's booking your route and try and think of a more southerly approach. And by that, I mean Miami, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta to a large extent. Year round, obviously it's possible and planes fly every day of the year. And there are many, many gateways to come through to Belize. I'm Debbie, I don't know if you can jump in here. Last I understood, there's still no non-stop way to get through to Belize. You've always got to overnight in the US on the way down. Obviously on the way back, it's all one journey. Are there any new flights? Because I know there's a lot of new flights that have opened up. Is there any way to spend a couple of hours in one of the US airports and head down the same day?
There are none at the moment, but or we've been, you know, lobbying with some of the airlines to, we're hoping that the flight from the UK, we could get back that same day connection to, you know, that you don't have to overnight in the USA. We do have new carriers coming in from the US, of course, Frontier Airlines and Alaska Air. So yeah, we do have more airlines coming in.
Yeah. And just to add from me, then the other option from the UK is to fly direct to Cancun, and then you need to overnight. But then there's often a flight that comes down to Belize from Cancun as well. So that's another possible option from this part of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's with Tropic Air. Tropic Air is a domestic airline that, you know, it's a Belizean airline. These are small Cessna caravans that fly over from Cancun to Belize. And they fly regionally because you have from Guatemala, Roatan, you know, different places that, you know, there's also Copa Airlines that also fly from Panama. And then there's also Avianca.
Yeah, so Said, mentioned he's got a same day Said Rashid to Belize City. I'm curious on that one.
Oh,
you
okay.
go for
Or
it.
just via Houston. Okay. I will look into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you, Said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess again, that's another thing with being a very small destination. When you don't have mass numbers, commercially, no airline is going to fly non-stop to you. So you're always faced with that connectivity. I mean, you know, a lot of people are quite excited to do a stopover in Miami, head to South Beach, get themselves ready for the trip down. Obviously, there is through, as Phil says, through Cancun, and there's a bus service connecting down to the coast, and there's a daily boat ferry service from Chetumal, which goes directly into San Pedro. You can fly through Panama. There are options, but the most obvious one is through the USA.
Yeah, we'll look after you. That's all you need to know.
Phil's got it all sorted.
Super. Should we dive into the key areas of the country, Nick?
Yeah. I just wanted to
click
mention just a couple of interesting things. That the Queen's Head is on the money, which is still we're still in the Commonwealth. But do only bring US dollars if you're coming to Belize. Bring in pounds and euros will just get you a lot of odd stares, and they're rarely seen. So obviously all the big resorts and restaurants and souvenir shops, they all take cards, obviously. But you know, for buying some stuff on the street, you will need US dollars. And another interesting thing, you might be in the pub and it's a question and you will know the answer, is Belize has the only flag on planet Earth which has people on it. There are two people. They used to, in the original concept, be of African descent. They're now mestizo and Creole. So they go a little nugget next time you're in a pub quiz. So Belize is a dive destination. We have on here the 3 of the 4 atolls. The diving is quite spectacular, particularly if you want something a bit different, on the southernmost point of Turn F, you have a dive site called Elbow. I'm sure Rolando's been there 1,000 times. And it's quite Pacific-esque, stronger currents, and lots more pelagics. The Ambergris Key, can we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah, it's difficult to choose a top site. So Ambergris Key, there is a trade-off between the north and the south of the country. In the north of the country, the dive sites are literally 5 to 15 minutes away from the coast. And I think the next slide will show you just how many sites are immediately accessible from San Pedro and the island. And then, yes, thank you. And at the very bottom, you'll see Hole Chan and Shark Ray Alley, which are very well known as the sort of 2 key places to visit, either snorkeling or diving. And you might be traveling with a partner who doesn't dive. They absolutely, definitely want to do the Shark Ray Alley and Hole Chan trip. The trade out is that the accommodation tends to be a little bit more expensive in San Pedro area. At the south of the country, which we'll see on a map in a minute, Placencia, the reef is 30 minutes, 45 minutes away. The accommodation tends to be generally a little bit cheaper. So whether you choose for north or south, you are going to pay about the same sort of pricing for a dive vacation, because of the difference in the cost of and accessibility of the diving. And most people do diving in the morning to 1 or 2 tanks, and then obviously there are some afternoon diving opportunities as well. So Ambergris Key is where you would typically have your jump off point to Turnef Atoll and Lighthouse Reef. Again, depending on weather conditions, 2.5, 3 hours trip, and that's to the Blue Hole is a 3-tank dive day, obviously with meal included, and off gassing in between the various dive sites. The typical profile is 50 to 90 foot, 15 to 30 sort of meters on Ambergris Key. And again, I'm going to let Rolando cover a bit more on the specific diving, and he will be the one to assist with the dive related questions, and I know you have lots of those. Placencia is obviously in the south part of the country. I've already explained that it is the jump off for Glover's Reef and Gladden's Spit, which is where the whale shark encounters are usually experienced. That's a very carefully controlled environment, not to have it over used. There are differences obviously in the topography and the marine life. There's a lot of similarities, but obviously you get a different, they're marine reserves, so obviously the conditions are quite pristine. It's all drift diving. There is no really more diving other than in Holchan and Sharkray Alley and maybe a couple of other sites. And typically when you're out there, you won't see other boats. It's everything is people get space. You can do Blue Hole and Lighthouse Reef on a day trip from Ambergris Key. It is possible to do Blue Hole and northern sites from Placencia, but it's a very long run and it's a very early start. I think they start, Rolando can probably correct me, normally around 5 in the morning the boats are leaving.
5:30. Yes.
5:30, yeah. It's a pretty early start. Getting back obviously late as well. But it's more convenient obviously from up north to do the Lighthouse Reef. Average depth in the south is pretty similar, 60 foot, sort of 18 meters dive profile. The whale shark diving, so it actually is March, April, May and June this year, but we're advised that April, May are the most likely times of the year that whale shark diving is possible. I would hesitate to say that people should not probably do a whale shark diving as the main part of their holiday, because if, for example, you're unlucky with the sightings, then that's why you went there. I would do it, and Phil, I think will back this up, as part of your dive experience, mixing up possibly Blue Hole, some reef diving in the north with some south, and accessibility between the north and the south is quite good. You don't necessarily have to lose time off gassing. It is possible to take a boat to the mainland and then drive down to Placencia, and do a cultural experience on the way down between the two destinations. You look like you want to jump in there, Phil.
No, I mean, I would just agree with that. Yeah, I mean, with any big fish sighting, I would always, nature is nature, and I think these things are always a bonus. So wherever divers go, we would always advise them to, enjoy the experience, and any really big fish sightings like whale sharks or so on and so forth are the bonus rather than the expectation, because you never know exactly where they might be.
Yeah, and they want the black or Cubera snappers eggs, and that's when they show up on cue to do their feeding. That's about 30 miles east of Placencia. I mean, even if you were unlucky and you went out and you didn't see whale sharks, the whole experience out in Gladden's Spit is quite spectacular. The dates are 2 days before the full moon, as that you can see on a calendar, up to about 10 days afterwards. Recommended. It's all about obviously key diving from Placencia, say normally 45 minutes away, and Glover's being the best known. Obviously they're all protected marine reserves, and the guides are extremely knowledgeable to obviously assist divers finding all those little critters they belong to see. Diving is for every level of diver. It's not just for expert divers or beginner divers, and it's quite gentle, easy diving conditions. Typically, a Belize dive is not fighting with the elements, that you can experience on a lot of other dive destinations. It's not what I would call guerrilla diving, unless you've got a choppy day out on the extremities. Then yes, obviously you're seeing great stuff, but you might have interesting entry and exit points. So obviously known for its great walls, which just somebody plunged into the depths. Turner Atoll, in the middle of the Turner Atoll, there is a very well-known dive resort on the flats. There's actually 2 resorts out there. people tend to typically do one or two things. They would actually stay out on Turneuf and spend the majority of their time diving around the atoll, or stay based in San Pedro or Kikorka even, and then make their, you know, their special trip out to Turneuf Atoll once or twice in a week. As say, the southern part of the atoll is quite a little bit more advanced, more vigorous diving conditions. But of course, the bonus is the incredible marine life that can be spotted out there. And I think Rolando, obviously, how many dives a week are offered out on Turneuf? Is it more than 2 days or 3 days?
Yeah, most of the time it depends on the amount of people we do. We try to work at least for 2 trips a week.
Yeah, and it's minimum 6 divers, so the chance of going out is very high. And what I like about how the Belize dive operators work together is that they will take on rotations. So if it happens to be off season and there's 2 divers in one resort, 2 on another resort, and 2 on another resort, you know, that is 6 people. So a dive, there's no dive shop that will go out with 2 people on a sort of a 3-hour run, just not commercially viable. So they all work together on rotation to make sure that tourists will get and visitors will get the dives that they've come there to do. And again, that's a very great system that they have going on the island.
Rolando, can you give us a little bit of a flavour of, say, the Elbow, which I think is one of the more famous dive sites there, or a typical dive?
The beauty about Turneuf is, like, most of the time whenever we have those bad weather, that's when we tend to dive there, you know, because if you see, it's an atoll which is all surrounding the island, and we can dive on the back of it, and it makes it very easy for us, which is, even though it's a rough day, let's say we cannot dive on the barrier reef, we can always go to the atolls and then we can dive. And when it comes to the Elbow, the amount of fish that whenever you're diving there, it's just extraordinary, you know.
Fantastic. What are the typical sightings for marine
The typical sightings is when most of the time you get to see the big schools of pool masters, which each fish is about, I would say, 13, 14 pounds each. And there would be 300-400 of them together. And then on the walls, we tend to have, like, it looks like a big sea fan. It's called a deep water gorgonian. It's a kind of coral that grows, which looks like a big fan. And they're always there, and just gives you that very cool view whenever you're seeing them, because in them there's a lot of crabs, a lot of little fish, tropical colored fish that they're very cool to see. You know?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Right. Phil, what I'd like to do is just talk about a little bit of some of the non dive adventures, and then I'd really like Rolando to specifically carry on with where he started just now, with some of the specific interests for diving, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so if I could crack on with the slides. Yeah, so again, Rodolfo has touched on Lighthouse Reef and the atoll, and I think I'd like him to come back and specifically spell out you know, the type of marine you know, animals that can be enjoyed there. If you want to go on to the next couple of slides there. Yeah, Half Moon Key, and yeah, so this is oh yeah, there we go. That was again the sort of topography that you can enjoy on the atolls. I mean, Blue Hole, obviously, which is the most bucket list dive destination there. Formerly, it was a cave which the roof collapsed when sea levels rose, creating this massive steep wall encounter, just like a treasure trove, like somebody tipped over some jewels and they all landed along a wall, and that's typically what we hear divers say. Can be lots of or shark soup, I think sometimes you call it, right, Rolando? A lot of sharks out there as well, quite exciting. Briefly, again, Debbie alluded to a lot of the things, and I think the next slide. So his adventures. Oh, there, that's I think me at Hol Chan and Shannon doing her zip lining. So we do things personally, and this is typical of all people involved in the tourism industry. They do it from a first-hand experience. It's not just us. Everybody understands and loves what they do. adventures. Debbie has already alluded to that. The Mundo Maya, you know, there are many sites. One that Debbie didn't mention, I mean, she can't mention all of them, obviously. We've got loads of them. Caracol, which is on the border with Guatemala. It's a full day trip, but it's absolutely astonishing sight. And you know, I would say to anyone, if you've got a stomach for interesting journeys, then yeah, go out to Caracol. I think they are upgrading stretches of the road more recently, but it's definitely worth a little bit the bumpy ride to have a trip out somewhere like that. The other interesting thing is that a lot of the trips are combined. So you'll have, when you go to Maya site, you might see a silver fox. You see lots of birds. You see the howler monkeys. Interesting, when the British Army came over, of course, most of the British Army in the early days had come from India. So when they got to Belize, you know, they saw a jaguar and they said, oh, look, there's a tiger. So Belizeans actually still today refer, you know, quite often to jaguars as, oh, look, I saw one tiger. And we have that with other, like baboon and the howler monkey. So, you know, those days, the names are still falling across. National Geographic said the ATM cave experience was one of the most interesting cave experiences in Central America. And on the interest factor, the largest piece of jade ever found in 1968 was at Nimli Punit, which is in the south of the country, and at Lubantun, the obviously all now famous crystal skull was found. I have a couple of, you can flip through the slides if you don't mind, as I just talked about cultural experiences. Now, what you see here is the drumming, and you can drum on the beach in Hopkins with the Griffiner, and we've not mentioned Hopkins, but Hopkins is also a dive destination. It's a small Griffiner village, and my wife and I kind of watched the Junkanu, which is a typical dance that the Garifuna do. And then it dawned on us that maybe this came from Morris dancing, but it's kind of Morris dancing on steroids, because how fast these young men jump up and down with the seashells and with the you know, white painted faces, masks and everything. It's astonishing how those things have come along. But I mean, if you're there to engage in what I call the après dive, like an après ski, those are definitely things to put on the list. I think I'm kind of done. I really want Rolando to give a deeper perspective of the marine life, which I know is dear to everybody's heart on this. And I also recognize that for a lot of people, you know, one person might be a diver, one person a non-diver, so you want to balance. It's perfect for that. It's also perfect for you know, people who want a little bit of diving, but that's, you know, 50% of their holiday. What I'll leave you with is, next time you're having a picture taken in a restaurant, don't say cheese, because your mouth ends up like that. Cheese, cheese. Say Belize, and you get the biggest smile ever. And that's the way we want you to wear your face when you think of Belize, with a big smile. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nick. That was absolutely fascinating. So before we go, we've got a few questions coming in on the chat and the Q&A, but before we go to questions, Rolando, if we could just come over to you. So from your perspective, you dive every day, have thousands of dives in Belize. What are the diving highlights of the country for you personally?
So, well, when it comes to the bucket list, you know, you need to do the Blue Hole. You know, Blue Hole is something that is very unique, and it's not unique due to its marine life. It is because of the history of the Earth. You know, we well know that stalactites and stalagmites only grow in dry caves. You know, they take hundreds of years for an inch to grow. You go down there and you're gonna go see 6-7 feet in diameter, 30-40 feet long stalactites and stalagmites, which is pretty amazing. And again, you cannot dive in nowhere else in the world than here in Belize. You know,
Yeah,
it is it's a maximum feet of 130 feet. We try to keep it recreational, meaning that we make sure that open water divers can dive it. However, if you're only a PADI open water diver, what we try to do is that we try to put in some dives before we take you out there. Not because of your experience, but more of an ear issue. Because when it comes to diving at the blowhole, you have a unlimited bottom time to keep it recreational. Recreational meaning that keeping you safe, you know? And that is like an 8-minute margin. So we always make sure that you guys have a few dives here before we go. And that makes it way more easier. And then trust me, when you go down there and you see this, maybe the first time you go there and you see stalactites and stalagmites, and you're like, oh, okay. Well, if you do it like a second and the third time, you know what you're going for, and then you're going to see, man, these things are pretty prehistoric because they literally stopped growing 10,000 years ago due to the ice age when the water rose, you know?
Yeah, yeah, incredible, really, really unique. And in terms of I guess there's 3 types of diving. You know, you've got inside the barrier reef, you've got on the barrier reef, and then you've got the atolls themselves. Is there a difference in character between the different types of diving?
Oh, yes. So when it comes to the atolls, like on the lighthouse, we have the uniqueness of the blowhole. However, each atoll, whenever we dive, we do what is called wall diving, which is like a big wall of coral reef that you're going to be diving on. When it comes to the barrier reef, we have what is called canyon diving, which is like if you're diving on top of the Grand Canyons and going through each of them. When it comes to inside of the reef, most of the time it's for smaller tropical fish. But again, one of our most famous inside reef dives is Hole Chan, where due that it's a reserve, you get to see a lot of stuff. And sometimes you get even a big chance to see manatees, huge schools of eagle rays in there, which is pretty nice, you know?
Fantastic, fantastic. Perfect. So we've got quite a few questions coming in now, and quite a few of them are about the diving. So we'll just trip onto those. I'm told as well that I'm supposed to do a poll for you all, and I'm told this is about the moment I'm supposed to do that. I've never done a poll, so I don't know what I'm doing really, but I'm going to click this launch button. So you may or may not see a little poll comes on there. There's some ideas for trips, of a land-based trip, Belize discovered, that I'll mention a bit more at the end. Of course, the liverboard, which is an option in Belize, and then to combine it with Guatemala, which is the trip that I did a few years ago. It was absolutely wonderful. I had culture and nature and archaeological sites and diving. It was a fantastic trip. So just for us to get a gauge of what type of trip you're most interested in. Kit and Roy are asking you, Rolando, and what's the typical water temperature in Belize? And I guess does it change throughout the year?
It literally, if it's gonna change, it's gonna change like a degree or two. So most of the time it is between 79 degrees and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And basically it could be like, let's say, a chilly day and the water doesn't change. It's right there. Yeah.
Perfect. And in terms of wetsuits, most people are 3mm wetsuits or shorties, I guess, or I'm a board shorts and rash vest man. I don't know if it's warm enough for that.
Well, like when we're here in Belize, we do not call them wetsuits anymore. We call them swimsuits because you don't need them. Because the water is so warm that you really just need a rash guard and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Super, sounds good. So I've got a few other questions about the diving. Is the blue hole suitable for PADI open water qualified diving? And can you appreciate it without going to quite a deep depth?
Actually, that one is a mandatory 130 feet dive, and we do take open water divers, again, with a recommended dive in the beginning, like a day before, so that we can take you out there. Yes.
Yeah. Suitable. Okay. So you need a little bit of experience and to be comfortable to really enjoy it.
Well, not really, not really. We just need you to be comfortable, because what happens is that a lot of times you're coming from somewhere that you haven't dove for a while, and jumping back in that water sometimes makes it a little bit harder, Yeah. Compare that if you have dove, you already know what you're doing, and it makes it way easier. And even though it's a max of 130 feet dive, it makes it very, very easy to dive there.
Yeah. Super. And then we've got a question: is there any cave diving or freshwater diving, as you get in the Yucatan with the cenotes in Mexico. I don't think they go further south into Belize, do they?
We do have some caves, but we don't dive them because it's never been like we don't practice a lot of cave diving here, and then we literally would not take tourists there, but we do have them.
What you can do, I think it was JW. I think Rolando might be having a technical issue for a moment. JW asked that question, and what you do have is obviously the flight we mentioned that goes between Cancun and Belize. So it's really easy if you want to dive the cenotes and also dive Belize. It's to be able to combine those two destinations.
And Phil, can I just jump in there? Sort of, for somebody asked, 130 feet is basically 40 meters.
I was going to ask that too.
In the UK, where Belize is very mile orientated and sort of imperial, whereas a lot of people in the UK are now more metric.
I don't do feet.
Yes, so when it comes to the blue hole, you're not going to only do one dive. Whenever we do these trips, we do a tree dive, a tank dive. We would do one at 40 meters, which is the first one. And then we take you, whenever it comes to marine life, we go to the lighthouse reef, where there you get to see a lot. You get to see a lot of marine life when it comes to color, bigger fish and all that stuff. And then we do two dives there, which are at 60 feet, which is about 18 meters.
Yeah, super. We've got another question. Also, I think from JW. Are there any manatees? Obviously, the central or the American version of the dugong.
Well, in this side where I am, in the Ambergris Key, we do have trips that take you, and it's like an 80% chance of getting to see them in the water. Yes.
Super. And is that on a dive, or is that sort of a trip from the boat? I guess is it?
It's a boat which you go snorkeling, because what happens most of the time they're on our channels. And we need to look for them, and when we find them, we jump in with them.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I would love to see one. I haven't seen them. I've got Roy as well is asking, what is the eagle ray on the back of my screen? I believe it's a spotted eagle ray, or they're also called an ocellated eagle ray. I think one of my
white spotted eagle ray. Yes.
Yeah, one of my favorite animals. Absolutely love them. They're so graceful and so beautiful. Yeah, so I mean, eagle rays generally in that part of the world are a reasonably common sighting. So you've got a good chance to see them on your diving trip, along with turtles and a couple of species of sharks as well, reef sharks, and I've forgotten their name, Rolando. The sharks that sit on the bottom.
Nurse sharks.
Nurse sharks, of course. That's what they're called. Yeah. We've got a few questions as well. Just before we start to wrap up. About sort of the top side. So I'm not sure if these will be questions for Nick or for Debbie, so I'll open it out to either of you. Steve and Lorna have asked if it's possible or easy to do a self-drive car hire to explore the mainland coast and the interior.
From a UK perspective, obviously driving in the UK is interesting. Belize has 4 roads, but you can't be fooled by that. Belize loves to put speed bumps, and it's where people cross. And so you're belting along at 70 miles an hour on what we call our highways, which is equivalent to a B road in the UK. And literally pops a speed bump, and people aren't accustomed to that. And not every speed bump has a sign. And sometimes there's a sign but no speed bump, just to keep you on your toes a little bit. It's absolutely safe. It's absolutely possible to do self-drive. What I think people will miss enormously is the explanation, the history. The tour guides are so experienced. They will take you places you can't find on the map. They will take you to experiences you would never find on your own. And when you're with them, they will be non-stop giving you the history, the culture, the background, creating the synergy. I think people that do self-drive will miss so much by actually doing self-drive.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, you don't always save a lot of money. It's not necessarily, some people would think of self-drive to save money, you know, because you're doing 1 or 2 experiences, you may be not driving every day. And when you go from A to B, if you were in San Ignacio and then you wanted to drive down to Placencia, we don't simply drive from A to B. We stop and do fun things on the way. So your travel becomes a whole day's experience as well. And you arrive enriched when you get to the next port of call. Debbie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
You summed it up perfectly well. It, you know, we have 4 major highways in the country, so it's, you know, and they're all paved, so the experience is just going to be, as Nick says, very enriching.
Super. We've got another question from Roy. What is the main religion in Belize?
Christianity, yeah.
It's interesting. We have so many denominations.
Many, yeah.
Many, like, you know, practically, you know, everything that you can, or most denominations that you can think about. So that ties into, like, for people who want to get married, and, you know, if they're looking to, you know, have that religious component, to a denomination that they prefer to, you know, to have the blessings of their wedding. I mean, we have those options, as of course, as well as the non-traditional wedding experiences.
Yeah. And Roy, I think as Nick was alluding to, you know, it's very, very culturally diverse. So there's lots of different groups there, all with distinct characters. We've got another question about how Belize is for solo female travellers and divers. Would you consider it a safe destination?
The safest destination in Central America.
Yeah. So I would concur with that. I mean, I did a trip a few years ago now. Obviously, I'm not a single female and never have been. But I never felt in danger anywhere I went at all. I never felt there was any kind of edge to it. I felt perfectly safe everywhere I went. So yeah, it wouldn't be a destination that I would have any concerns recommending for a solo female traveller at all.
Just out of interest, I mean, we as a company, we do get quite a few solo female and solo male travelers. And in 12 years, we've never had any negative feedback from any of those travelers, either male or female, that they've felt uncomfortable at any point. And I think the dive guides, the snorkel guides, the land guides go out of their way to make those visitors feel comfortable and safe. It's an unwritten rule that, you know, everybody has to feel included and welcome. And yeah, that's my experience.
We've got another question, and back to the diving from IKEC. Hello, IKEC. Well, that's how it's come up on the screen. Is there night diving available in Belize? Rolando?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And then basically what we try to do is we try to do it inside the reef, where it's a little bit shallower, like especially in our channels. We get to see a little bit more, and we get to give you way more time underwater. We do maybe about 50 to an hour every time we do these.
Yeah. And we have another person asking, do you potentially see more on a liveaboard than resort diving? So I can give some thoughts on that, Angela, and then we'll ask Rolando as well. So liveaboard is one of the options, and I'll mention a little bit about that in a while. Obviously, the advantages you get of the liveaboard is that you do more dives and you spend more time on the outer atolls. So you do get more time there. So it's different from the resort-based diving, but I think you lose things as well with a liveaboard, and I think that's just for personal preference. Obviously, a lot of the fun of a day boat diving adventure and the charm of being on the island, and of course coming back to firm land is the attraction of the day boat diving, and to suck up the culture and the nature on land as well. Would you agree with that, Rolando?
Sure, yeah, but you know, everybody, like when it comes to, when you're a diveaholic, you can't do anything about it. But both of them are very good. Like when it comes to a liverboard, like you said, you're gonna be more on the atolls, and right there it's way more pristine. It's something that you're gonna see way more. But when it comes to the resorts, you get to see a little bit of the culture. You get to see a little bit of the tour guide. Sometimes tour guides will take you everywhere
Yeah.
to check
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
places that you will not see in a boat.
Absolutely, and you get to meet Rolando as well, of course. One last question, and then I'll just finish with a couple of slides in a video. Stuart asks, is accommodation of a good standard and widely available? I guess possibly Nick, you're the best person to answer that with a
it's
picture of the accommodation.
it is quite a smorgasbord, and whatever you're looking for, you can find it. What Belize doesn't have is a lot of branded hotels, and in fact, until a couple of years ago, there was not one single branded hotel in the entire country. That's changing, and there are a few brands who have bought in what would be considered smaller properties than they may have elsewhere in the world. So it's still, the average size of a hotel in Belize until recently was like 10 rooms. I'm sure it's more than that now, with the bigger hotels coming in. But it's always, you can choose from tiki huts on the beach. You can have something a bit more palatial with a fancy schmancy pool. Whatever your style is, it can be found. And typically the accommodation, the service especially, is always friendly, always of an incredibly high standard. And look, the world's not round. It's not perfect. Well, it is round, but it's not perfect. Even if something does happen to go wrong, you'll find that Belizean hoteliers really know how to take a difficult situation and make it good again, and make up for anything that might have slipped. But again, we get so few as a company. We're handling sort of 500 guests a year. The incidents of complaints, they're almost non-existent. That's the nice thing.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly there's lots of options there, and you can discuss with us, what your preferences are and what your budget is, and obviously we will tailor make things to make sure that they suit you. Okay, I think we've answered most of the questions. Apologies if we haven't got to your question, but I believe we've answered most of them. And what I'd just like to do to finish with, if I can find the right screen, is just to give you a flavour of some of the trips that we or some of the trip ideas that we have. So as those of you that have booked trips with us or spoken to us before will know that we're a tailor-made tour operator, so we can arrange within reason almost anything you want. But we've put together a few trip ideas that we think are a good way to explore the country. So just to give you a little bit of a flavour of what it would cost and what you could do. So one of those is Belize Discovered. So 13-day trip from 2,945 per person. If you're traveling in high season, then maybe you can add on £150 to that in terms of the ground arrangements. That gets you the flights from the UK, one night accommodation en route, unless we can find Saeed's flights via Houston that don't have the overnight. We'll be checking those out. 7 nights at Ramon's Village. We haven't said too much about Ramon's. That's where Rolando works. It's a fantastic dive resort on the island of Ambergris Key in the north. Really, really good base, dive centre on site, really professional, lovely place to be. 10 boat dives there with your tanks and weights. And then 3 nights on the mainland. What we've tried to emphasise on this talk is that Belize isn't only a dive destination, it's got incredible things on land as well, and it suits people that want to do some diving and also some things on land, or a diver and non-diver couple. 3 nights at Black Rock Lodge or somewhere similar. That's an eco lodge in or just outside San Ignacio. Absolutely beautiful location. From there you can experience all the adventures topside that Belize has to offer. Absolutely beautiful lodge with a really good sustainability and conservation ethic as well. Daily breakfast throughout, and local flights where they're needed as well, and all the transfers. For those of you that have joined the Zoom call, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We've thrown in a few added extras as well. So Ramon's have kindly offered for you only a free night dive as part of the trip to throw into it. We've also got a free baboon sanctuary tour that we'll throw in for you, and a free guided on-site tour at the beautiful grounds and environment of Black Rock Lodge that I just mentioned. And as a thank you for us from Dive Worldwide, we will offer you £50 per person off your holiday as well, and we'll send you more details of that after the call. So that's one option, not the only option, but a nice itinerary in order to experience the diving and the interior. You could swap Ambergris Key for the diving and spend a little bit of time down south, or extend that as well. That's one of the options. Another fun thing to do for a little bit of an extended trip, or something a little bit different, is to combine it with Guatemala. This is actually the trip that I did, and I'm very happy to chat to anybody about it. I had a fantastic time. So Guatemala's got fantastic archaeology of Tikal. It's got Antigua de Guatemala, which is a World Heritage Site and a beautiful city. Lovely lakes. This is a very iconic lake surrounded by volcanoes. Lots of adventure there. So you can spend a few nights there and also spend time in Belize. They make a nice combination. I think the land border is closed at the moment. So it's not something you could maybe do in the next 2 or 3 months, but it's a nice trip if you're looking to combine places. And then of course you've got the liveaboard as well. That we mentioned, so they spend more of their focus on the outer atolls, and I guess they're suited for those looking to dive every day, up to 5 dives a day. So that's typically from 3, 4, 7, 5. Again, we would recommend that you probably, there's quite a short pace of time to spend in Belize, so we would recommend that you also spend time and extend that trip with some time on land. But that hopefully gives you a flavour of the different options and different packages that you can do, and then we can tailor make things from there to make sure that we book the trip that's right for you. So I hope from everybody that has given you a really good insight into Belize and has been very informative. I'd like to give a huge thank you to my panelists, our experts today, so to Nick and to Deborah and to Rolando as well. You've been absolutely brilliant, so thank you so much for all your knowledge and expertise, and for brightening up our cold and dark Wednesday evening here in the UK.
Not cold here.
We'll be there soon. We all want to go now. What I will just finish off to say goodbye, and we've got another little video of the diving in Belize. There we go, perfect. So that's just a little video to wrap us up. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session and found it informative, and it's inspired you to want to visit Belize. It really is a fantastic country, somewhere very, very close to my heart from my visit. If you've enjoyed this Zoom call as well, and we've got a couple of others coming up later this month, or early February. We've got another talk on Grenada, and I think one on St Helena in the South Atlantic. So feel free to sign up to those as well. And we look forward to hearing from you soon to plan your adventure to Belize. Thank you very much, everybody. And from myself and Debbie, Rolando and Nick, have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.